You know that feeling when someone rewrites history? When the person who broke your heart suddenly becomes the victim in their own twisted version of events? This is the story of how my cheating ex-boyfriend tried to paint me as the villain to his new wife, until she messaged me on Instagram asking for my side of the story. What she got wasn't just my side. It was screenshots, dates, hotel receipts, and text messages that proved everything he told her was a lie. Spoiler alert. Their marriage didn't last long after that. My name is Emma, and this happened about 3 years ago. But let me take you back to where it all started, because understanding the full context makes everything that happened later make so much more sense. I met Jake when I was 24 years old. He was 27, worked in marketing at a tech startup, and had this charming, confident energy that just naturally pulled people in. You know the type I'm talking about. Charismatic, always knew exactly the right thing to say, made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop party in downtown Chicago. It was one of those perfect warm July nights where the city feels truly alive. The kind of night where everything feels possible. He walked up to me, handed me a drink with a smile, and said, "You look like someone who has way better taste in music than whatever this DJ is currently playing." I laughed immediately. We talked for 3 straight hours about everything and nothing: music, movies, travel dreams, childhood stories, exchanged numbers at the end of the night. He texted me the very next morning with, "Coffee today? I promise I'm significantly less awkward in actual daylight." Our first date turned into a second, then a third. Then suddenly we were seeing each other every weekend. Within 2 months, we were officially together and exclusive. Within a year, we'd moved into a beautiful apartment together in Lincoln Park. Everything seemed absolutely perfect. We had all our little routines that couples build together: Sunday morning pancakes with way too much syrup, Friday night movie marathons where we'd argue playfully about what to watch. We'd take spontaneous weekend trips up to Michigan. I introduced him to my parents, and they loved him immediately. He introduced me to his family, and his mom hugged me like I was already part of the family. We talked about marriage constantly. Not in a serious let's set a date and plan everything way, but in that comfortable, natural, future planning way where you just assume it's inevitable. We'd joke about what our wedding would look like, whether we'd have a big celebration or something intimate, what we'd name our future kids, where we'd want to eventually live and buy a house someday. I genuinely, truly, completely thought he was the one. My person. My future. But here's the brutal thing about seemingly perfect relationships. Sometimes they're only perfect on the surface because one person is really, really good at hiding things underneath. Looking back now with clear eyes, the warning signs were definitely there from the beginning. I just didn't want to see them at the time. Or maybe I saw them but convinced myself they didn't mean what they obviously meant. It started around the 18-month mark of our relationship. Small changes at first, nothing dramatic or obvious. Just subtle shifts in behavior and patterns. He started staying late at work much more often than usual. "Big project launching," he'd say casually. "Crazy deadline we're all pushing toward." I worked in education, so I didn't really understand tech startup culture and their weird hours. I figured it was just normal for that industry. His phone habits changed pretty dramatically, too. He used to leave it casually on the coffee table, completely unlocked, didn't care at all if I saw notifications popping up. We had that comfortable level of trust. Suddenly, though, it was always placed face down on surfaces, always on silent mode. He'd take phone calls in the other room with the door closed. When I asked about it innocently, he'd brush it off with things like, "It's just boring work stuff, babe. You'd fall asleep if I explained it." Then there was the defensiveness that seemed to come out of nowhere. I'd ask completely innocent questions like, "How was your day today?" And he'd snap back, "Why are you interrogating me constantly?" Or I'd mention someone from his workplace casually, like, "Oh, is that the Jessica you mentioned the other day?" And he'd get weirdly tense and uncomfortable. "She's just a colleague, Emma. Why are you so obsessed with my coworkers?" I wasn't obsessed with anyone. I was just trying to show interest in his life and be a supportive partner, but every single time I brought anything up, he'd somehow flip it back on me. Say I was being insecure and needy, controlling and suspicious, that I needed to seriously work on my trust issues. So eventually, I just stopped asking questions entirely. I ignored the obvious fact that he'd suddenly started going to the gym at really weird hours, that he'd bought expensive new cologne out of nowhere, that he was suddenly very interested in completely updating his wardrobe with trendier clothes. I told myself repeatedly that I was just being paranoid, that I was imagining problems that didn't exist, that if I could just trust him more and stop being so insecure, everything would be perfectly fine. Classic textbook gaslighting, and I fell for every bit of it completely. It all came crashing down on a Friday in early December, one of those cold, snowy, classic, brutal Chicago winter nights. I was supposed to have a fun girls' night out with my closest friends. Dinner and drinks at this trendy new restaurant downtown that we'd been wanting to try. I'd been genuinely looking forward to it all week. Jake was supposedly working late yet again on another project, so the timing worked out perfectly. But about 2 hours into dinner with my friends, I started feeling really off. Not sick exactly, just completely drained and exhausted. I'd been incredibly stressed at work dealing with difficult parents and administration, and I think my body was finally just catching up and shutting down. I apologized to my friends and told them I needed to head home early. They completely understood. I ordered an Uber and got back to our apartment around 10 p.m., much earlier than I'd originally planned. The lights in the apartment were all off except for a dim glow coming from our bedroom. I figured Jake must be home already, maybe watching TV in bed or possibly already asleep. But as I walked quietly down the hallway toward our room, I heard his voice clearly. He was on the phone talking to someone. I genuinely wasn't trying to eavesdrop on his conversation, but something in his tone made me stop walking and just freeze. It wasn't his normal casual talking to a friend voice at all. It was softer, more intimate, more tender. Then I heard him say clearly, "I know, babe. I'm going to tell her really soon. I just need to find the right time, I promise you." Babe! My heart literally dropped into my stomach. I stood there completely frozen in the dark hallway, trying desperately to process what I'd just heard. Then he said even more intimately, "I wish you were here with me right now instead. I genuinely hate sleeping without you next to me." That's the moment when I pushed open our bedroom door abruptly. He was lying casually on our bed, phone pressed to his ear, and when he saw me standing there, his entire face went completely white like he'd seen a ghost. "Hey," he stammered badly, sitting up way too fast and almost dropping his phone. "You're home super early." "Who were you just talking to?" I asked. My voice was shaking uncontrollably. "Uh, my sister," he said immediately, way too quickly to be believable. "Your sister, who you call Babe?" I said, my voice getting sharper. He fumbled with his phone, quickly ending the call. "It's really not what you think at all." "Then what exactly is it, Jake?" He stood up from the bed, ran his hand through his hair repeatedly, wouldn't make eye contact with me at all. "Look, you're clearly stressed and tired right now. Can we please just talk about this tomorrow morning when we're both calmer?" "No," I said firmly. "We're talking about this right now. Who was on that phone?" He tried desperately to change the subject entirely. Said I was completely overreacting to nothing. Said I was being paranoid again like always. Said I needed to calm down and stop being dramatic. That's the exact moment when I knew with complete certainty. He was absolutely cheating on me. I didn't sleep at all that entire night. Jake tried to act completely normal like nothing had happened. Tried to cuddle up next to me in bed like everything was fine. But I just lay there completely rigid, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head over and over. The late nights at the office, the constant defensiveness, the secretive phone calls in other rooms. It all made perfect horrible sense now. The next morning, Jake got up early claiming he had a Saturday morning meeting. Yeah, right. Sure he did. The absolute second he left the apartment, I grabbed his iPad from the kitchen counter. He always left it sitting there, usually unlocked because he never thought I'd go through his things. We used the same Apple ID for convenience, so all his messages automatically synced across all his devices. I opened iMessage with shaking hands, and there it was. Everything I feared. Months and months of messages, with someone named Jess with a little briefcase emoji next to her name. I scrolled all the way to the very top of their conversation. The first message was from July. 5 whole months ago. Great meeting you at the conference. Let's grab coffee next week? Seemed innocent enough on the surface, professional and normal. But then August arrived. Last night was absolutely amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Then September. I genuinely hate that I have to pretend we're just co-workers when we're around other people. October hit differently. I'm going to leave her soon, I promise you that. November was even worse. She asked about you today at dinner. I told her you're nobody important. She believed me completely. I felt like I was genuinely going to throw up right there on my kitchen floor. I kept scrolling through everything compulsively. There were photos of them together, videos, screenshots of hotel room bookings, forwarded flight confirmations with both their names. The supposed work conference in Austin? They'd shared a hotel room together. The guy's weekend trip in Seattle? She was there the entire time with him. The visit to his parents' house in October? He was actually with her at a romantic cabin in Wisconsin. Every single lie, every pathetic excuse, every time he made me feel absolutely crazy for asking normal questions. It was all right there documented in black and white. I sat on the cold kitchen floor with that iPad for over an hour, just scrolling endlessly, reading everything, screaming internally. But then something important clicked in my brain. I wasn't going to let him gaslight me anymore. I absolutely wasn't going to let him rewrite this entire story to make himself look better, so I started systematically taking screenshots. Every single message, every photo, every receipt. I airdropped them to my phone in large batches, hundreds and hundreds of screenshots. I carefully organized them all by date in a folder I labeled Evidence on my phone. I screenshotted all the photos of them together, all the receipts, all the hotel confirmations, all the flight bookings, absolutely everything. Then I very carefully deleted the entire airdrop history from his iPad so he would never know what I'd discovered and documented. I put the iPad back exactly where I'd found it on the counter, and I waited patiently for him to come home. Jake came home around 2 p.m. that afternoon, acting completely normal like nothing was wrong. "Hey, babe," he said cheerfully, even kissing my forehead like nothing had happened. "How was your morning?" I looked directly at him. This man I'd spent 2.5 years of my life with. This man I thought I was going to marry someday. This man I'd built an entire life with and introduced to my family. And I said calmly, "I know about Jessica." He completely froze. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything," I repeated even more calmly. He immediately went into full defense mode. "What are you talking about?" "Emma, you're being completely paranoid again." I pulled out my phone and started reading his own messages out loud. October 14th, 11:47 p.m. "I wish I could wake up next to you every single morning instead of pretending with her." His face changed dramatically. November 2nd, 8:23 p.m. "I'm going to end things with Emma before Christmas. I just need to figure out the logistics." "Emma, stop this right now." November 18th, 2:15 p.m. "She asked about us today. I told her you're just a coworker. She's so trusting. It's almost sad how easy this is." He tried desperately to grab my phone. I stepped back quickly. "Don't even try it," I said firmly. He ran both hands through his hair, pacing back and forth frantically. Okay, look, I messed up badly, but it's really not what you think it is." "It's not what I think?" I said, laughing bitterly. "Jake, I have hundreds of screenshots of you telling her you love her. I have hotel receipts. I have photos of you two together. I have flight confirmations. What exactly is not what I think?" He tried absolutely everything in the classic cheater playbook. It didn't mean anything at all. I was confused about my feelings. You were so stressed with work, we were drifting apart naturally. I was going to tell you eventually. We can go to couples therapy. We can fix this together. I just stared at him silently. "Get out of this apartment," I said quietly but firmly. "Emma, please don't do this. Get out. Now." He packed a bag that same night and left, stayed with a friend. Within 1 week, he'd moved in with Jessica permanently. The next few months after that were absolutely brutal, honestly. Jake texted me constantly at first, long emotional paragraphs about how sorry he was, how he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, how he wanted to work things out desperately, how what we had was real and he'd stupidly thrown it all away. I blocked his number completely. Then I found out through our mutual friends that he'd officially moved in with Jessica. 1 month later, they were engaged. 3 months after our breakup, they got married. It stung deeply. Not because I wanted him back at all. I absolutely didn't. But because it felt like confirmation that I was somehow the problem in our relationship, that I wasn't enough for him, that everything he'd said about me being difficult and controlling might actually have been true. But I committed to therapy. I leaned heavily on my close friends and supportive family. I focused intensely on my career and got a promotion. I moved to a new apartment across town in a completely different neighborhood, started completely fresh, and slowly, painfully, I started genuinely healing. I didn't think about Jake anymore at all. I didn't check his social media profiles. I didn't ask mutual friends about him. I genuinely moved forward with my life. I even started dating someone new after about 6 months. A genuinely good guy named Marcus who was kind, honest, and actually communicated like a normal, functioning adult human being. I thought that entire painful chapter of my life was permanently closed. Then, exactly 1 year after our breakup, I got a direct message on Instagram from Jessica. It was a completely random Tuesday evening in December. I was cooking dinner in my new apartment, listening to music, just peacefully living my life. Then I saw the notification pop up on my phone. Message request from Jessica Martin. My stomach immediately dropped. I opened it with genuinely shaking hands. Hi, Emma. I know this is super weird and you probably hate me, but I really need to ask you something important. Jake told me that you were really toxic and controlling during your entire relationship with him. He said you accused him of cheating constantly even though he never did anything wrong, and that you broke up with him completely out of nowhere because you couldn't handle him having female friends at work. But I found some old messages on his laptop last night and something really doesn't add up at all. He told me you two broke up in January, but the messages I found are clearly from December and he's talking about leaving Emma soon. Can we please talk? I genuinely need to know the truth. I stared at that message for a solid 10 minutes without moving. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, to let karma do its thing without any involvement from me, to stay entirely out of their complicated mess. But another part of me, the part that vividly remembered sitting on that cold kitchen floor reading those devastating messages, the part that remembered being gaslit for months and months, the part that remembered being told my own reality wasn't actually real, that part absolutely couldn't stay silent. So I responded simply and directly. What do you want to know? She called me exactly 30 minutes later. Her voice was noticeably shaky when she answered. Thank you so much for responding to me. I honestly wasn't sure if you would. What exactly did you find on his laptop? I asked carefully. She explained in detail that she'd been using Jake's laptop to quickly print something for work. A folder accidentally popped up in his recent files labeled E-OLD. She got curious and clicked to open it. Inside were numerous message screenshots between Jake and someone unnamed, talking explicitly about ending things with Emma and finally being together properly. The dates were clearly from November and December, when Jake and I were definitely still together. He told me you two broke up in January because you were toxic and controlling, Jessica said quietly. But these messages I found, Emma, were you two actually still together in December? Yes, I said firmly. We broke up December 16th, right after I found out he was cheating on me. With you. Complete silence on the other end of the call. He told me you two were already broken up for months when we got together, she whispered. He lied to you, I said simply and clearly. She started crying openly. He said you were crazy, that you accused him of cheating all the time for absolutely no reason, that you went through his phone like a psycho, that you were controlling and jealous, and that's the real reason he finally left. He gaslit me for months and months, I interrupted firmly. Made me feel genuinely insane for asking completely normal questions, and when I finally found actual proof, he somehow tried to make it seem like it was my fault for not trusting him enough. More heavy silence. Then she asked quietly but firmly, Do you still have proof of everything? Yes, I do. Can you please send it to me? I hesitated for a moment. Are you absolutely sure you want to see all of it? I need to see everything, she said with determination. I sent her absolutely everything that same night, every single screenshot I'd carefully saved from that horrible day, organized chronologically so she could clearly see the full timeline. Messages from July. Great meeting you at the conference. Coffee soon? Messages from August. Last night was absolutely amazing. I genuinely can't believe this is happening between us. Messages from September. I hate hiding this from everyone around us. Messages from October. The cabin trip was absolutely perfect. I wish we didn't have to sneak around anymore. Messages from November. I'm going to leave her before Christmas. I promise you that. Messages from December 15th, literally one day before our breakup. I'm doing it tonight. By tomorrow, I'll finally be free and we can be together openly. I also sent her screenshots of Jake telling her specific things like, Emma doesn't know anything at all, and she's way too trusting to ever suspect, and I'll just tell her I'm working late again, and all the supporting receipts, hotel room bookings, flight confirmations with both names, photos of them together on trips I genuinely thought Jake was taking alone. After I sent absolutely everything, I put my phone down and tried to go back to cooking dinner, but my hands were shaking uncontrollably. Exactly 30 minutes later, Jessica called me again. She was absolutely sobbing. He lied about literally everything, she said through tears. Emma, I'm so incredibly sorry. I didn't know any of this. I swear to God, I didn't know you two were still together when we started our relationship. He told me you'd been broken up for months already. I know exactly what he told you, I said quietly. He's extremely good at lying convincingly. I confronted him tonight with everything, she said. Showed him all the screenshots you sent me. He tried to claim you somehow faked them all, but then I showed him the messages I personally found on his own laptop, his own words, and he finally admitted everything. What did he actually say? That it was complicated back then. That he was confused about his feelings, that he's genuinely changed now, that what we have together is real and what you two had was toxic. I laughed bitterly. Of course he said that. That's exactly what he would say. I don't believe him anymore about anything, she said firmly. 3 weeks later, Jessica messaged me again briefly. I left him permanently. She'd moved out completely, was staying with her sister temporarily, had already contacted a divorce lawyer to start proceedings. Jake, apparently, was completely losing his mind, blowing up her phone with literally hundreds of texts and calls, showing up at her workplace unannounced, sending her expensive flowers repeatedly, writing long, emotional emails, begging her desperately to reconsider. He told her I was obsessed with him, that I'd deliberately sabotaged their marriage out of pure jealousy, that I'd somehow doctored all the screenshots to make him look bad, that I was unstable and couldn't let go. But Jessica didn't believe any of it anymore, because she had his actual laptop with his real messages, in his own words, from his own accounts. 2 months later, she officially filed for divorce. They'd been married for less than 6 months total. Through various mutual friends, because let's be completely real, people always talk in social circles, I heard all about Jake's complete meltdown. He tried desperately to play the victim, told absolutely everyone who would listen that his crazy ex-girlfriend had deliberately ruined his marriage, that I was obsessed and unstable and couldn't handle seeing him happy with someone else. But here's the thing. Most of our mutual friends already knew the truth. They'd personally seen how he treated me during our relationship, how he'd gaslit me constantly, how he'd moved on suspiciously fast. So when he tried to paint me as the villain, most people didn't buy it at all. Jessica also told several mutual friends the real story. About how Jake had lied to her about absolutely everything, about how he'd cheated on me with her and completely lied about the timeline. Slowly but surely, Jake's reputation in our social circle completely crumbled. Friends who'd initially believed his victim story started distancing themselves. His family was reportedly extremely disappointed. Even some co-workers apparently found out and started treating him differently at work. Karma, it turns out, doesn't always need help, but truth definitely speeds things along. It's been 2 full years since Jessica first messaged me. Jake and Jessica are officially divorced now. From what I've heard, Jake tried dating several people after, but nothing stuck. Last I heard, he'd moved to a different city entirely for a fresh start. I genuinely hope he learned something. But honestly, I doubt it. Jessica and I aren't close friends, but we follow each other on Instagram. She seems like she's doing really well. New job, new apartment. From her posts, it looks like she's traveling, spending time with family, genuinely rebuilding her life. She sent me a message on the anniversary of her divorce. Thank you for telling me the truth. I know it wasn't easy, but you saved me from wasting more years with someone who didn't respect me. I told her she didn't need to thank me. She deserved to know the truth. As for me, I'm engaged now. To Marcus. We're getting married next spring. And here's the thing. I don't think about Jake anymore. I don't wonder what he's doing. I don't feel angry or bitter. I just feel completely free. Because I learned something important through this experience. The truth always comes out eventually. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not how you expect. But eventually, liars get caught. People who rewrite history can only keep up that act for so long. When Jessica reached out, I had a choice. I could have ignored her, stayed out of it, let her figure it out alone. But I remembered what it felt like to be lied to be gaslit, to be told my reality wasn't real, and I refused to let him do that to someone else. So, yeah, I ruined my cheating ex's new relationship by telling the truth, and I'd do it again without hesitation. So here's my question for you. If someone reached out asking about your ex, someone who cheated on you, lied to you, and tried to rewrite history, would you tell them the truth? Or stay silent and let them figure it out on their own? Drop your verdict in the comments. Not the asshole if she deserved to know the truth. You're the asshole if I should have stayed out of it. Everyone sucks here if both sides handled it badly. No assholes here if everyone did what they thought was right. And if you've ever been in a similar situation, whether you were cheated on or found out the truth later, or were the other person who got lied to, please share your story in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe for more real relationship stories, revenge tales, and karma served cold. See you in the next episode.